Okay, hi everybody. My name is Darshan Prasad, and this is my final project presentation for the course Web Application Development with Java. The name of my project is Be Well. I decided to develop a wellness application for my final project. So Be Well is a wellness app designed to provide wellness recommendations and to help users track their wellness data over time. So specifically for this project, I focused on BMI score calculation. So BMI stands for Body Mass Index, and there's a BMI calculator inside the application that the users can use to compute their BMI score. And then users actually are able to log those BMI scores as data points that are associated with their account, so that over time users can see how their BMI score is changing. The app also provides some simple wellness recommendations based on where the user's BMI score falls in the normal to obese scale. So if the user is in the healthy category, there's a certain wellness routine recommendation for that. If they're in the overweight category, there's another wellness routine recommendation, so on and so forth. And the user can actually track their progress visually because we generate a chart that plots all of the BMI score data points, and the user can see how their BMI score is changing over time. So for this project, I decided to work solo, and the only reason is because I'm located on the West Coast, and I think a lot of the students are usually located on the East Coast. And so just to simplify time zone coordination and that sort of thing, I decided to work individually. So the Be Well app implements the MVC pattern that we've learned about and discussed in class throughout the semester. So the way the app is structured is there are several application controllers that are responsible for different features inside the app, and that those controllers will pull data from and also manipulate the application model. And then the model data is rendered to the user through a view, and then the user is actually able to interact with the view. And user interactions typically result in triggering some kind of controller action, and then that controller action will subsequently update the model and push back a new view to the user. The app also uses a local MySQL relational database, and I used MySQL Workbench for much of the schema design and running SQL scripts during application development. And the app also uses JPA to interact with the database layer. So I decided not to use any additional MVC frameworks like Spring or Struts for this project, just because I felt like the level of abstraction provided by the Java servlets and the Java servlet spec was enough for this particular application. And so all of the controllers are implemented as Java servlets, and the servlet mappings are defined in the web.xml file of the application. All of the views are implemented as Java server pages or JSP pages that all use the core JSTL library. And all of the business objects are defined as JPA entities that map back to a table in the relational database schema. So with that, let's go ahead and demo the application. So this is the landing page, and this page, so just to mention, I used the sample project in the course text, the Music Store application, as a project scaffold for getting started. So the user interface is very similar. And this is sort of a static, the welcome page is sort of static information that's listed here. But the user interface itself is actually rendered dynamically because it's actually composed of multiple parts. And so the first part is this header, which contains the logo and the header information, as well as this top navigation bar. So that's in a header.jsp file. The sidebar is in a separate .jsp file, and then the main content is in another .jsp file, and the footer is in a separate JSP file. So they're all bundled together through JSP includes. And the user might click on Calculate Body Mass Index as an initial starting point. So here they're taken to the BMI calculator. They can enter a sample weight and height and click Submit. And you'll notice that they get back their BMI score along with a wellness routine recommendation based on the fact that this particular BMI fell into the healthy category. And at the bottom, since we're not logged in right now, the application will actually encourage the user to register for an account. So if we were to register for an account, let's just call the username a test account, and we'll create a sample email address with a password. And when the user registers, they get a successful confirmation, and they're now provided the link to login. So I'll just mention, so when you click on login, a couple things happen. The first is that the protocol changes from HTTP to HTTPS, and this is because the progress section of the application is restricted per some configuration options in the web.xml file. And so none of the JSP pages that are in this area are available unless there's an active user that's been logged in. So let's go ahead and log in as the test user. So you'll see here that if we click on the progress chart right now, it'll say that we don't have any data points yet, so that we could use the BMI calculator to get started. So if we go back to the body mass index calculator, if we were to enter the body mass index values again, you'll see that this time, instead of encouraging the user to register, the application now knows that there's an active session. And so it encourages the logged in user to log their result. So we can choose the date for this particular calculation and say log result. And if we go back to the progress chart, you'll see that there's a data point actually logged now. So let's actually switch users by clicking logout, going back to my account, and logging in as a user with some more data. And you'll see when we go to show progress chart for this user, there are many more data points that have been logged over time. Additional functionality include joining the email list, and that could be used for providing wellness routines and recommendations. And then there's some error handling available. So if we were to go to some kind of dummy URL, you'll see that a 404 error is actually caught, and it's displayed to the user in the main section of the website. Logging out will invalidate the current session, so that if you go back to my account, you're now requested to log in again. So just reflecting on the project, I think the most challenging part of the project was wiring together all of the different application and deployment components so that they worked correctly together. I found that that was kind of hard to do without a working example. So there are many parts. There's sort of the server configuration, the application configuration, and then all the application components in the model view and controller workflow. So I found that the sample music store app that is available for download through the course text, that was actually very helpful as sort of a project scaffold that you could use for then adding additional logic or modifying logic. And I found that iterative development is sort of the best approach, especially with applications like this, where one change might affect multiple parts of the application. So it's best to try to build each component as modularly as possible, and I think that leads to a much better software design. So that's my presentation. I just want to thank both Professor Chitterjee and Kenneth for a great semester. I definitely learned a lot in this course.